don't believe we have any A&Rs.
No, we do not.
And so then at 6:35, we'll have a public hearing on a proposed zoning map amendment. The property owners of 7 Cedar Street, Parcel B, have petitioned to have their property changed from suburban residential to commercial tourist district. At 6:45, we'll have a request for a time extension on a special permit at 234 and 246 Haynes Street, Petrogras Group, New England, requesting a time extension for the special permit to complete the project. Following that, we'll have the town planners update. So has everyone had an opportunity to review the minutes of February 26th? Any changes, comments, questions? If not, we'll have a motion to accept as submitted.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? So we have a few minutes before the public hearing. Do you want to go
Sure.
through your update?
Okay. So we've resubmitted the Complete Streets Prioritization Plan, and I'm awaiting news on the resubmittal. Hopefully, second time's a charm, and we don't have to do it again. This old news, Rebecca has resigned. This was on the last agenda, but it was canceled. Her position has been posted and advertised, and actually I made a recommendation to the town administrator today, so I'm waiting to be able to speak to him on that. So hopefully we'll have somebody within a month or so, I would guess, by the time this individual gives notice and things like that.
Great.
We issued an RFP for the development of an affordable housing unit at 226 Cedar Street. This was one of the parcels that the Board of Selectmen held for the potential development of affordable housing. So there will be a meeting the second Monday in April with prospective proposers. We'll walk the site. All the permitting departments will be there to answer any questions people might have. And so far, 2 firms have requested a copy of the RFP, so at least there's some interest there.
Great.
So we'll see what we get. And then we have 2 potential marijuana retailers at this time. So working with Mr. Kozak, he's asked that I kind of facilitate the process. You'll note that they need to have a host community agreement with the Board of Selectmen before they can apply to the planning board. So I've been working with both of the companies to gather information for town council. And then we are scheduling an introductory meeting with the Board of Selectmen on April 22nd. Both properties are zoned appropriately, and both parties have the property under agreement. So it will be up to the Board of Selectmen now to see if they want to negotiate an agreement with these companies. And if so, they'll move forward to the permitting process with us. And if those 2 are approved, that will be our limit on retailers. So, and I had another inquiry from another retailer today. I think the past 3 weeks, we've had lots of calls. I think Sturbridge is the next hot place. And we'll see how it goes with the Board of Selectmen. And the incoming town administrator, he starts Monday, so it will be good to be able to have his guidance as we go through this process on the host community agreement as well. So
Very good.
that's all I have.
Great. It's almost 6:35. We have another minute.
May I ask Jean a question?
Sure.
Where is the location for these retailers? You said they're both under,
They're both under agreement, so I'm sorry. One is 138 Main Street, which is the former Paoletti's, and the other is 214 Charlton Road, which is the former Spa, which is across from Wendy's. It was the medical day spa there, one of the homes. So those are the 2 locations. They're both in a commercial district.
Very good.
thank you.
You're welcome.
I'd like to have you then read the notice.
In accordance with the provisions of Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 40A, Section 5, the Sturbridge Planning Board will hold a public hearing in Veterans Memorial Hall in the Town Hall, located at 308 Main Street, Sturbridge, at 6:35 p.m. on Tuesday, March 26th, to consider amendments to the town's zoning map. The property owners of 7 Cedar Street, Parcel B, have petitioned to have their property changed from suburban residential to commercial tourist district. Any person interested or wishing to be heard on this zoning proposal should appear at the time and place designated. The petition and a map showing the proposed zoning map amendment may be reviewed at the town clerk's office, 308 Main Street, Sturbridge, Massachusetts, during normal business hours.
Very good, thank you very much.
You're
Okay,
welcome.
the public hearing is open. Looks like Mark can explain. Introduce yourself for the record, please.
Sure. My name is Dan Gagne. I'm general manager and one of the owners of Table 3 Restaurant Group and Porchlight Investments, which owns this property. I think you guys have all had a copy of the map. We had a discussion probably sometime around last October just to see, the general temperature of the board. It was an informal discussion about potentially increasing our parking at 420 Main Street. I think over the years that we've taken this property over, we've brought a lot of economic vitality to this area, starting with the Cedar Street Grill, which is a very busy restaurant that shares this parking lot, as well as the veterinarian group that shares the parking lot. We've established the barn at White Farm, the Cedar Street Cafe. We have now 2 also full-time tenants with NSS, which is in the upstairs location, building number 4, and Excel Advertising and Marketing. So we have a lot going on at the property, and like many situations in Sturbridge, we're starting to really feel the pinch of parking, to the point where we really can't use our barn facility to its full capacity during the daytime hours because of our commitments to tenants and so forth, in shared parking arrangements, which I think really work for everybody. And it was really apparent to us when we tried to host the Chamber of Commerce lunch, and several of us were out running around parking cars and stacking things up because we didn't have the parking space. We've also, when the IDEA agency moved out of Building 2, we've taken over a portion of this building. So we have been using that space for ceremony space, but we'd like to also start using it for function space. But on a Saturday evening, with Cedar Street Grill cooking and a 150-person wedding in the barn, we just wouldn't be able to accommodate having that event. So we're kind of at a standstill in terms of trying to increase our business. So obviously, we have a pretty significant parcel of land that's attached to our property that we own. We've hired McClure to take a look at that property. We've done some soil testing, and we feel that, we could, if a zoning change was granted, put another 90 or so parking spaces there, which would really benefit all of our businesses. So that's really kind of it in a nutshell.
Very good. Thank you. Do you have any other presentation as far as anything else on it? Just, that's it?
I really don't. I mean, this is, if Gene had a map that showed, property along Route 20, and, this was and I can pass this around.
We have that.
Yeah, so it's, it's not totally,
That's fine. Gene, do you have anything you'd like to add or comment on?
Yes, I think that the proposal here is very consistent with the objectives of the Commercial Tourist District. We're trying to bring more people into that area, and I really look at this as infill development rather than trying to develop on the outskirts where we might be, taking up new land. I feel that it's best to enhance our businesses where they already are and where they're served by infrastructure. I know that for some of the abutters, it's always different when, there's never been anything behind you and now all of a sudden something is happening. However, I will say that, people have the right to develop their property, and we have site plan mechanisms in place that will, if this is approved at town meeting and they come in to build this parking lot, they will go through the site plan process. The planning board will have opportunity to ensure there are adequate buffers and stormwater management and lighting controls and things like that. That should be able to address any concerns that the abutters may have. So I would be supportive of this request.
You know, I think Table 3, we've been doing business in town now for almost 9 years, and I think we have a pretty good track record so far of, you know, being good neighbors, good employers, and tastefully developing property that we put our hands on. In this situation, I mean, we've already kind of thought about our neighbors, and look, I wouldn't want, you know, a parking lot right up to my backyard either, and that's why, you know, we plan to leave a pretty significant wooded buffer all around the property, as well as the there's land, you know, out and around the parking lot. That will do a really nice job landscaping that, and would use dark sky lighting and all the things necessary to make it and be on control so it goes off at a reasonable time and everything in the evening, so.
Any questions, Russell? Do you have any comments or questions?
No, I did get a phone call today from one of the abutters, and they were supportive of the proposal. Obviously, they want to see the final outcome when we do get the site plan, but they had no objections to it, so.
Put a note that this only allows it to, you know, go forward and go to town meeting where the town.
Right, and that's what I explained to them, that it's, you know, it's got to go to town meeting anyways, and there'll be a site plan, and
Right.
so.
Jim, any?
I wasn't here in October when you had the presentation. So when I looked at it, I had some pretty basic questions, and I've discussed it with Ms. Boubouin, and I think the answers were all that I really needed to hear. One of them, of course, was site plan, and that will go forward, as I understand it, if this change is made, and the lighting was one of my concerns. And the other one was the abutting residents. And as I've been told, if this goes out, the abutters will all be notified. So with those two primary concerns, I think that I'm satisfied. I know it means a lot to your business. And by its nature, we certainly can't object to it as long as the abutters are satisfied.
Yeah, and it would be certainly our objective to work with any abutters that had concerns to see if we could alleviate those concerns through, you know, additional wooded space or additional landscaping concerns or something like that.
Great.
Very good. Thank you.
Sue?
Historically, your company that you work with has been very respectful of the town of Sturbridge and the character we wish to maintain and the respect of residents. So I support this moving forward as well.
No questions, no.
Nope. Was that- Very good. Any comments from the public?
I'd just like to speak in favor of this,
For the record, just let us.
Michael Supernaut, 14 O'Flam Lane. I'd like to speak in favor of this proposed zone change. I think it would allow for the highest and best use of the land there, and would augment the existing commercial tourist facilities in the area, including the land owned by Three Tables, so.
Great. Thank you
That's
very
it.
much. We appreciate that. Anything else? If not, I'll have a motion then to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second?
Second?
All in favor? Okay. If we're ready to make a decision on this, I think that Jean has provided the wording for the motion. Would someone like to make a motion if you would like to approve this? Support it?
I'll make the motion that the planning board support this and move the process along. The next step would be selectmen, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
I would support moving this forward to support the proposed zoning map change requested for the property located at 7 Cedar Street from suburban residential to commercial tourist district as requested, and to provide the recommendation to the town administrator and board of selectmen for inclusion on the town meeting warrant.
Very good. So you'll get to make the motion, Russell? You can-
I'll second that.
Okay, any other discussion? All in favor? Pass unanimously. Very good. Thank you very much.
Good luck.
Okay, very good.
Dan, when I find out the finance committee is discussing the article, I will notify you. Yes.
I just happy to run it off.
I'll go, but it would be helpful if you have somebody from. So as soon as I know, I'll let you know. Board of Selectmen and Finance Committee both Okay?
Okay. So the next item is a request for a time extension for the special permit to commence project for the Petrogras Group New England 234 and 246 Main Street project. Like to come up and introduce yourself? And
Is it okay if I sit?
Sure.
Good evening, everyone. For the record, my name is Joshua Lee Smith. I am an attorney with the law firm of Bowditch and Dewey. I'm here this evening representing Petrogas Group New England, Inc., in connection with this, as the chair mentioned, request for an extension of time with respect to the special permit as well as site plan review approval that was granted by this board about a year ago. So just by way of background, as mentioned, the property is located off of Haynes Street, which is Route 15. It is about a 16-acre site and currently contains an abandoned building which was most recently used as a couple of food establishments. At one point it was a Sparrow as well as a Roy Rogers. The site also contains an approximately 2,200 square foot mobile gasoline service station. Generally speaking, the project, as was presented to this board previously, involves the demolition and removal of the 2,200 square foot mobile structure and consolidation of the uses, including the gasoline service station, as well as the addition of a convenience store use and 2 food establishment uses within the former, I'll call it, Roy Rogers building. So as I had mentioned, I was before this board representing Petrogas about a year ago. We sought and obtained site plan approval by the board. The plan was thoroughly vetted by both this board as well as the ZBA, as well as the Design and Review Committee for the town, and lastly, the Conservation Commission. So the town has certainly had done its due diligence with respect to the project, and that due diligence continues, which is part of the reason why we are seeking the extension. The project itself, as depicted, now this is the proposed site plan, not the existing conditions. The project itself looks pretty innocuous as far as a project like this is concerned. However, there are actually some quite complex engineering aspects or components to the project which has required further review and inspection by various local officials as well as at the state level. So there has been some delay with respect to working with the Conservation Commission, which was the last board that had granted its approval at the local level. And as part of that approval, there was a requirement that an existing culvert be relocated on the site, which sounds simple enough, but in fact it is quite complex, and it involved approvals by Mass DOT. There was also a well that needed to be drilled, which will provide water supply for the proposed restaurant uses. That also, we ran into some stumbling blocks in connection with that, with working with Mass DEP. More of a property rights issue, but that has since been resolved. There were also some weather condition limitations as well that resulted in us delaying in allowing us to move forward. The triggering event is the commencement of construction, which would avoid the lapse of the permits that were granted, which lapse 1 year after they were granted, which would be March 27th. So working with Jean Boubon, she advised that we submit the application requesting the extension of time, which is why we're here this evening. And what we are requesting specifically is a 1-year extension. The ZBA, I was before the ZBA last week, and they took it upon themselves to recommend that the extension sought should be 1 year. In my letter request, I had requested 6 months. We believe, we anticipate that work will commence, probably demolition work within the existing building will commence next month, and actual construction activities for the new project will commence soon thereafter. So we don't anticipate that we'll need even a 6-month period, let alone a year. However, the ZBA did recommend that we do seek a 1-year period for extension, so that's what I would be seeking from this board this evening. There are, as I said, have been complexities with that were not anticipated from an engineering standpoint, and we don't want to have to come back again and seek another extension. Moreover, once we do commence construction, even if it's within that prior to the lapse period of an extension period, if that work is not continuous, then we could also run into a situation where our permits expire as well. So we don't want to have that situation arise, and that could happen. So we would be requesting a year.
Very good.
And with that,
Thank you.
I'll open it up to any questions.
Great. Jane, do you have any comments or thoughts?
Excuse me, yes, I have no concerns at all with the request for extension. I know how diligently they've been working to secure all the permits. In fact, Becky Gendro and I went out to Mass DOT a couple of times to try to see if there was anything we could do to kind of help facilitate that process and provide information. So I have no concerns at all with the request for a 1-year extension.
Very good. Great. Any comments, questions from the board? Mike?
No questions, though.
No.
All set?
All set?
Okay, we have a motion then to grant the extension of the permit for 1 year.
So moved.
Over here, Chris. Okay, any other discussion? All in favor? Opposed, no one? Unanimous, very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you
for
very
coming in.
much.
Good luck with the project.
Yeah,
We
Yes.
appreciate
look forward
your
to
diligent efforts
getting
on
work
this.
commenced.
Yeah.
Thank
I
you.
know you had some other issues too, even with the idea of renovation versus demolition, so you've had a lot of issues with this, but I'm glad the project's moving forward.
To revive them.
That's great.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're
Okay,
welcome.
anything else, in your update, or,
No, that's all I have.
okay?
I'm sorry, could I just add, just one quick thing, our office, because we're, only myself right now, and our office will be closed Thursday afternoon, Friday, and potentially Monday and Tuesday. If anyone is looking for anything, please see the building department or the conservation department, and they will do their best to assist people while I am out on a brief medical leave.
Okay, very good, thank you. Okay, motion to adjourn? Oh, I'm sorry. Any old business?
Yeah, matter of fact. I've gotten several comments, mostly comments, maybe a couple complaints about the gas station project down here at Jack's Gas. And particularly the mountain that's growing in the back of the building.
Yeah,
And the amount of trees that were removed.
Yep.
I know I brought that up to you before,
yes.
and I'm just wondering if somebody's keeping an eye on that. I mean, at first they were just trimming the trees, and now they're all gone.
Yes, so I did ask Mr. Burlingame to keep an eye on that. He has gone down a couple of times to speak to Mr. Wahib. The process is finally starting to move along down there, so we expect to see that kind of cleaned up and rectified. And I have asked for a new planting plan because a lot of the trees that were taken down were not supposed to be taken down. So they were trimming trees that were overhanging the building, and then it appears that additional trees that weren't earmarked to come down came down at the same time. So we've asked that they provide a new planting plan. So I'll be working with Mr. Wahib as we come into spring to see what we can get done in the back hill there. And I've spoken to Tom Chamberlain, the tree warden, about that as well, so.
And the mountain will be gone before they get an occupancy?
The mountain of dirt?
Yeah,
Yes, it should be, yes.
thank you.
Jim, any old business? No?
Nope.
New business? New business? Anyone else? Good. Okay, now we'll have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second? All in favor? Very good.